It is no secret that selling, consulting, and coaching online, especially to mass consumers, has become incredibly difficult. The mass consensus regarding coaches is that the vast majority of them are scams. And quite frankly, they're right to feel that way, okay? In this video, I want to help you know tactically, tangibly, how to cut through the skepticism that your common consumer feels in regards to information products, consulting, and coaching. And I'm going to reference a handful of my one-on-one direct relationship clients. This link's in the description for more information. These are clients of mine that I've scaled to six-figure, multiple six-figure months, even $500,000 a month in total volume, usually at about a 50 to 70% take-home margin in their organization. And I'm going to reference them because they're following the same things that I'm sharing with you in this video today. 2018, 2019, it was much easier to sell to a consumer, especially during the pandemic. 2020, 2021, people were online, they were buying, they had stimulus checks. It was much easier to sell to your consumer. Now, it's much, much harder. There's two timeless rules that if you follow them, your business will thrive in every single season in any market. And frankly, a lot of the reason why a lot of these B2C offers currently are struggling, the same ones that were doing very, very well just a few short years ago, is because they on some level weren't tapping into what people actually want. They were simply modeling somebody else that they saw making a lot of money with that offer. And that's sort of the byproduct of the problem, not the problem in of itself. The problem in of itself is people aren't hitching onto proper problems and pains within markets and speaking to them in ways that your average consumer is ready to receive. The other problem is trust. How do you gain trust at scale? And a lot of people think that you gain trust by making a lot of content. People spend a lot of time with you. That's actually not the case. You can create a lot of trust very, very quickly. In my other organization, my other company, the Kingdom Closer Academy, where we help Christian men learn sales and land a job in sales, sort of in the consulting and coaching industry. Sorry, there's like bugs out here. My wife and I were living in this little converted farmhouse situation. And there's so many bugs during the summer, but it's so beautiful out, so I had to get outside to film this video. So this is going to be a super valuable video, okay? Ridiculously valuable, short, to the point. I'm not going to waste your time. I'm going to help you actually know how to create mass desire and get buyers in a B2C marketplace, okay? So let me pull up a diagram that I pull up a lot on this channel that I've actually evolved a little bit somewhat recently, okay? So let me go ahead and pull this up. Give me just a sec to get my camera right, and I will show this to you. Okay, here's that, and then get my screen. Okay, so I use this framework quite a bit on this channel. If you know me and you watch my content, you've seen me use this a lot. This is what I call the belief engineering process. So if you're on mobile, you might have to zoom in a little bit. I think that's as big as I'm going to be able to get on the screen. So at the very, very top, let me explain what belief engineering first is. Belief engineering is getting somebody to pre-believe what is necessary to then buy your product. A great example would be a company like Tesla. Back in the mid-2000s, like 2008 to 2015, something like that, their message was primarily, hey, pollution, emissions, go green, buy an electric car, okay? And so in order to desire to buy a Tesla, nowadays it's a bit different, but at the time it was really go green, okay, buy a Tesla. It's a set of values and beliefs. If you believe that the world, whether you do or don't believe this is irrelevant to this case, by the way, if you believe that the world has a lot of emissions and you want to do well for the world, then you would buy an electric car. So there's a macro trend or a mass consensus that they're tapping into, okay? There's a macro trend or a mass consensus. What is a mass consensus that is appearing in the global conversation that would have somebody willing and ready to buy a Tesla, okay? So here's the problem, okay? Let me just come back to me for just a sec here. Oh my goodness, this is so frustrating. A part of the problem is these coaches that did well in 2020, 2021, 2022, or maybe even 2019, you were just hijacking other people's mass consensus, okay? You didn't actually take the time to discover what your mass consensus was and attach to it, okay? You just rode the conversation that you saw, you're like, oh, that messaging must work. I'm just going to attach onto that messaging. And a lot of the time, things have burnt because you haven't reinvented your messaging. You haven't reinvented your identity as a brand, okay? So let me come back into this and go back to the screen. I know this is a little finicky how I'm doing this. So if your content or your ads can talk about a macro trend or a mass consensus, then you will build the audience of people experiencing pains or desires within that macro trend or mass consensus. In my other company, Kingdom Closer Academy, the macro trend or mass consensus that we reference, I'll literally pull up the video sales letter that we use in that company briefly for you. I won't show the whole thing. That's stuff that's kind of reserved for my one-on-one clients where I really go deep into the psychology of what's working in other company and stuff. But let me pull this up for you just so you can appreciate what I'm talking about a bit. Literally in our video sales letter, we pull up, and I'll show this graph to you, things like, let me show you this, the Global Economic Policy Uncertainty Index. This is essentially how people are generally feeling about our economy right now. If you'll see, I'm literally like, the Global Economic Policy Uncertainty Index states that right now, a majority of Americans are incredibly concerned about the future of the job market and their income security. As well, a majority of Americans believe the U.S. is in a recession. And, you know, I'm not saying that these things are true or not. I'm just saying, look, if you believe this to be true, then you have to create security for yourself. And the only true way to create security is with skills that earn you money. There's really no other way to do it. So I pre-install a set of beliefs that somebody would need to believe in order to appreciate what it is that I'm selling, which is a training program on sales. So the macro trend or mass consensus that my other company plays into is the only real lasting skill that exists is the ability to take somebody from curious and interested to buying something. Humans will always need that. That will always be in demand no matter what. And if you can master that, you can create income in any season. And by calling out, so our ad literally says, I was burnt out in my 9 to 5 and concerned about the security of my income considering the economy. So our ad literally calls these things out. So we're getting prospects experiencing pains or desires. And then our belief, the first belief, is we get people to admit that the way that they're trying to solve their problem now isn't working anymore. So belief one in the belief engineering process that I train all my one-on-one clients on, I talk about in this channel, is getting people to admit that the way that they're doing things right now isn't going to work anymore. Looking for a job ain't going to work. Even if you get a job, you know, like only 10 or 20% of jobs actually have true, like, lifelong security. You know what I mean? Like due to a global economy and other things. Agree or disagree with these things, this is how people feel, okay? Due to a global economy, outsourcing majority of work, etc., like, there's not really that much security for the middle class right now in America. And that's just kind of how it is, you know? So jobs aren't the way that you're going to create security. Belief two, new, relevant, easier way, mastering sales and finding a gig in sales, and not just any type of sales, but high impact customer service oriented sales, not sleight of hand sales, but good sales that really helps people. That's, you know, our industry. The right companies in our industry really care. Sub 10 million a year offers, their reputation is everything. And then belief three is format of the offer. So the reason I'm showing this to you guys is because I want you to begin to think for yourself about, dude, these huge bugs. I want you to think for yourself about your positioning in your marketplace. The problem is you're not necessarily thinking for yourself. And if you're humble enough to receive that message, then I'm here to tell you that you are ready to move into a new season and actually start making a bunch of money again. The messaging that worked back in 2020, 2021, 2022, it was a lot of just make 10 grand a month online, you know, like everything. But right now, if you can tap into fear and concern for the economy, that's how you can make a lot of money. But that changes season on season. So what I'm trying to drill home for you, let me really help you make a clear point here, because sometimes my videos are a little bit all over the place, but it's just because it's all in my head and sometimes it's hard to get it so clearly communicated. If your macro trend or mass consensus has burnt out, your business has burnt out. You'll notice that Tesla changed their messaging when Go Green started kind of tapping out a little bit. There's still a lot of people that care about the planet and everything, don't get me wrong. But that wasn't as inspiring of a message and isn't as inspiring of a message as of late. The cultural tide is somewhat shifted. And so as a coaching business, because you sell an intangible, you have to be so spot on with the macro trend and mass consensus that you tap into. And if you're not completely dialed in on the mass consensus, then your business will die out. And a lot of the people who made a lot of money very quickly in the coaching space, what you did was you followed the coattails of people who were actually intelligently deciding to tap into a quality macro trend and a mass consensus, and then you didn't even know what you were doing. And so you're wondering why your business is hard right now. Well, it's because you just copy and pasted somebody else's macro trend or mass consensus that they actually considered. Okay? So good marketers can enter into the conversation inside of their audience or prospect's brain. The reason why we are able to book $80 to $120 sales calls for a $4,800 offer is because I've entered into the conversation going on at mass within the faith-based male American community regarding job security and economic concerns. Why can I do that so well? Quite frankly, I live in Indiana, okay? I don't live in Miami or LA or something. I live around average people who have average thoughts, okay? So I'm in that space. And it plays to my benefit in a big, big way because I can speak to that, okay? So what you have to learn how to do, man, is you have to learn how to understand the conversation going on within your marketplace. What are the fears that keep them up at night? What are the things that they don't even realize that they're anxious and they can't even put a pin on it. And then you put a pin on it and they're like, oh yeah, that's it. Like, I'm worried about that. That is frustrating. If you'll notice, I even opened this video with a common pain in my industry. In my industry, in the coaching and info industry, it is getting very, very hard to cut through skepticism. Why is that? Well, it's because people aren't intelligently speaking to problems the way that people would explain their own. If you can use their language and their verbiage, you can cut through a lot of skepticism. Okay? People don't like sales processes when they feel like sales processes, and sales processes feel like sales processes when they suck. I used to be a graphic designer, and I used to do a lot of CGI and editing and 3D modeling and stuff when I was like 14 and stuff. And I bought these courses from these like Hollywood computer-generated graphics artists. A majority of like the Marvel movies, it's all CGI, for example. It's all CGI. But good CGI doesn't feel like CGI, and you don't even know it's CGI. Does that make sense? Bad CGI, you hate it. So the top 10% of CGI, people love. They don't even know it's CGI. But the bottom 90% of CGI, people hate it, and they think CGI is the problem. And it's the same as sales processes and the skepticism that arises from sales processes. If your sales process is just even a little bit worse than the top 10%, people are gonna be like, "This is a scam. This is you're just another course guy. I'm not about to buy your freaking course. I don't want to waste money on another course. You guys are scams." You know what I mean? But if you have a good message, you speak to macro trends and mass consensuses that they're feeling. You get people feeling real pains. You get them to admit that the way that they're trying to solve it right now isn't working anymore. It's not going to cut it. You introduce a new way, and you make a strong case like a lawyer would to a jury that their client is innocent. You make a case to this jury, which is the brain of your prospect, that this way will work better. And then you get them to believe that the format of your offer will effectively, essentially guaranteed install this new way into their life or their business. That's when you get strangers to buy things. But when you do any of this wrong, people feel like they're being sold, and then they are privy to them being in a sales process, and then they don't want to buy your thing because you're not entering into their conversation. I hope that this has been a valuable video for you, and I hope that you have come away from this video, as well as my other videos, with a lot of new ideas. Links in the description to learn about what it looks like to work with me one-on-one. I come in and I script out your whole process. I help you build your sales team around it. I help you build your coaching team around the guarantees you make and the deliveries. You know, I've got clients right now that have just had their first six-figure month. I have a client who just had their first $16,000 day. I have multiple clients that have gotten to at least $200,000 to $300,000 a month. About 4 clients that are at $500,000 a month, or have gotten to $500,000 a month, and I've got a handful that even have gone on to $1 million a month. But I don't personally take credit for the $1 million a month because I haven't myself and one of my businesses gotten there, okay? But the messaging that we built is what eventually got them there. So if you can take anything away from my channel, attach your business to quality mass consensuses, okay? Like in this business, in my coaching coach's business. Let me let you in on a little secret here, man. So, I'm just going to show you how I'm getting no questions asked, 25 grand paid in full one-on-one clients, and people are just ready to go by the time that they're on the phone with me, okay? So And it's not for everybody. That's okay. Like, my free content's going to hang out forever, all right? So my current online information is harder than ever. That's the pain. That's the mass consensus, okay? Belief engineering is my mechanism. So let me read this to you. Online coaches are held suspect. People are burnt out buying from them, and coaching is very hard to do well right now. People don't want to buy coaching programs, okay? So the problem is people are teaching funnels with this outdated way of thinking. They think that cost per lead, cost per call, ROAS, like that's what you focus on. That's not what you focus on. What you focus on is the message. Those numbers are a byproduct of the effectiveness of your message. Okay, people focus on the numbers when they should be focused on the message, and the numbers will follow. Okay, so belief engineering. This is my way of describing taking somebody from stranger to believing in what's necessary to want to buy your stuff. Okay, one-on-one with me, if you follow my content at all, you've digested my content, you've seen my testimonials, then you would probably believe that getting my unfiltered, blinders-on attention on your business to tell you exactly how to position your stuff over the span of a year, that you're probably going to get to 100 grand a month. So that's a believable format of my offer, and then that drives sales. And if you're interested in this, links in the description. You'll speak with me. I don't have a sales team. I don't have a coaching team, okay? I just do this because I like it. My other business is on pace to make me more than I even make here. But I just like this. It's my favorite thing, okay? So I hope that this makes sense, right? You have to attach onto quality mass consensuses, okay, for lack of a better term, and then introduce ways to achieve the outcome that makes sense. And then people are going to want to buy if they believe that the format of your offer will effectively install that way or that mechanism. If you do this stuff right, nobody's going to call you a scam. Only losers will call you a scam. People with any intelligence, they're going to buy your stuff. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this. See you in the next video.